Worth is not something you earn, it's something you remember. Welcome to the Voice of Impact, where belief meets action. Our podcast amplifies the stories, systems, and solutions behind meaningful change. I'm your host, Robert Ndoping. Today's conversation is a reminder that impact doesn't always begin with power or position. Sometimes it begins with survival, truth, and the courage to tell your story. My guest today is William Plange from Ghana. He's a Ghanaian writer, speaker, and social impact founder whose work is restoring dignity, purpose, and hope to people navigating depression, exclusion, and self-doubt. William is the founder of No Human is Useless, a registered human-centered movement rooted in the power belief that every human life holds inherent worth regardless of circumstances. Through storytelling, education, and community outreach, his work creates spaces where people are seen, heard, and reminded of who they are beyond labels. He's a 12-time international best-selling author, best known for his memoir, No Human is Useless, which chronicles his journey from deep depression and homelessness to purpose and global impact. His story has reached audiences across Africa, Europe, North America, earning him international recognition, including a Caribbean Global Award in the United Kingdom. Williams' message has appeared on global platforms, from schools and prisons to conferences, and even the Times Square billboard in New York, inspiring
Right.
people to rediscover their worth and claim their voice. William, I'm grateful to have you with us
Hmm.
today.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Trust me, so humbling.
Before we talk about the movement, the impact, I'd love to start with you, William. What's the story that led you to this work?
Yeah, thank you so much. I grew up in a community in Ghana where everybody would tell you, every parent, every elderly person you see in the neighborhood would tell you that you need to go to school, make sure you are first in class, make sure you are top of everybody, and if you complete school, your life is going to be beautiful because you're going to land a good job. Anything you want to buy, you can afford it because you've completed school and then you have good grades. All right. So growing up, I had this mindset because every parent in that neighborhood is going to tell you that. So I grew up with my grandmom and my mom. My grandmom had a bar where we sold alcoholic beverages. So my daily routine was I go to school, come back home, sell alcohol, do my homework, go back to school. That was my life. So growing up, I still had that mindset that if I'm top in my class, if I'm if I'm the best of everything, my life is going to be brilliant and beautiful. So fast forward, I completed school with good grades. I did my national service and then there was no job. I was struggling to get a job. Then of course I think like these people were telling us from the beginning wasn't the way it is in reality. Because if so, my grades were very good. I need to land a job, right? But then of course I see my friends who were I was way better than in class. They were just at the bottom of the class. They were living life. They've had good jobs. They've bought their cars. And I see them and I feel so bad because I am the one supposed to live that life. Because if what society told us was very true, I had a good grade. Why am I struggling to get a job? And that was when depression started with me, right? So I was just juggling through it. And perhaps in some situations, I get these kind of jobs that you end up using your salaries as transportation back to work. So at the end of the month, you have zero savings. Sometimes you need to borrow money to go back to work. And all these things were troubling me while living in the city. So one day, me and my friends, we met, we are having a chit chat, and one of them who was doing well asked, William, what are you doing now? Where do you work? I was thinking he was asking me that just to support me get a good job. And I told him, oh, I'm not doing anything for now. And he goes like, William, you need to get a life because we are all moving. And that thing really struck me. It really hit me so hard. To him, he was just passing a comment, but it really hit me so hard for my own friend to tell me that, hey, get a life because he was fortunate to have a good job and a car and all of those stuff. So same time, my family also barely noticed me because as a firstborn, in our culture, you need to support the family as a firstborn. And I wasn't doing that. I wasn't contributing to the bills and all of those stuff at home. So I was not really noticed. So all these things became chaos in my head, and I didn't know what to do. I wake up every morning sad, thinking about what to do next. So I finally decided to move away from the city, and I went to live in the forest. I knew a small family who lived in a village inside a deep forest up north in Ghana. So I called them and I was like, hey, I want to come spend some time with you. And they were like, oh, come over. Right. So I took a night bus and I journeyed to the region. It's called Half region. So I went there and it was tough. Being born in the city, I wasn't exposed to this kind of life. No electricity, no good drinking water. Sometimes we need to drink from a stream that looked green in color. It was tough for me. And in the forest, when we wake up in the morning at 4 a.m., we need to walk like 4 to 5 hours into the deep farms to get food stuff like cassava and all those stuff. And then we carried on our head, we walk back 5 hours to the hut that we prepare food. And you couldn't say you couldn't go. You wouldn't go because all the boys are going into the farm. And that is where the food is. So if you want to eat, you have to follow them so that you can get food to eat there. And when you come back home, you eat again. And for the first week, honestly, it was very tough for me. I was so lost, right? But after a week, I realized that I wasn't thinking about not having a job. I was getting calmer. I was getting healed inside because the small group of people I found myself with were all loving people. Nobody will come and be like, get a life. We are all equal. So those chaos that I was feeling in the city fled away, and I was getting calmer in the forest. So one day, I love to pray a lot. One day I went to sit under a tree around 9 p.m. and I was just talking to myself, like, God, am I going to live my life this way, this place? I want to hear your voice. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just saying stuff. Then I heard this whisper, a female voice whisper in my ear that, William, go back to the city and start a business called the Errand Boy. The Errand Boy. That's all I had. I didn't have any explanation to what to do with the Errand Boy, just the name Errand Boy. So 6 months down the line, I came back to the city and I got somebody to design a logo for me with my name, Mr. Plange. And I said, you know what, add the Errand Boy, that's my slogan. So I had that and I posted it. When I posted it on my WhatsApp and Facebook, I said, hey, if you're a busy scheduled person, you want somebody to run errands for you, pick up the groceries for you, pick up your kids from school for you, call on me. I'm the errand boy. Then in a span of a week, I get calls from high profile people in the country, like bankers, lawyers, judges, these kind of people calling me that, hey, somebody told them about my services. Can I help them do these rounds for them? And these people were very busy people who didn't have time to do those rounds. So I set in and do those rounds for them. And it wasn't really about the money, but anytime they told me, God bless you, William, thank you so much for sorting me out. I had this very sharp feeling. It was a very good feeling inside of me. Just me being able to, solve somebody's problem at a dying need, it made me feel so good. So I began to have contact with these high-profile people in the community, in the country, and I knew who to call if I need some kind of assistance, right? So fast forward, COVID, 2019, 2020, when COVID came in, I lived with my grandma. I woke up one day, my grandma said, hey, William, you need to leave this house because you're way over 18. I'm broke. I need to rent your room so I can make money. And I thought it was a joke because my grandma usually would make these kind of assumptions and then we'll forget about it. I stepped out, I came back, and my grandma had packed all my stuff outside the gate. that, hey, William, you need to leave this house. All right. And at that point, I felt my whole life had come to an end because I didn't know my next step. I had no plan because at that time, I was just living on these basic errands that I was doing, I was making for people. Then it was so tough. I felt like, okay, so my grandmom is a leader in the church. So I had a mindset, let me go to the church and go talk to them so that they come home and speak to her on my behalf. Now, the people from the church comes to the house, talk to my grandmom, and my grandmom says, hey, the church didn't build my house for me. I built my own house. I decided what to do with it. So my grandson should leave this house. And at that point, I felt, yes, my whole life had come to an end. So I had to go, my mom had to go borrow money, like 1,000 cedis, and then 1,000 cedis would be like $100. We had to go rent a small wooden structure somewhere in the neighborhood, very small, that I need to sometimes maneuver myself, in a way to enter the room. I dumped all my stuff in there and I slept at a very small corner, and all I'm telling you, I have pictures to all these things, and I don't know why I was taking pictures that time. So when I got to this room, COVID, lockdown, nobody to call for help. That was the time I felt like that is it for me. It got up here. No hope, nothing. So I always wake up in the morning, is it I'm crying and I'm praying. That's all I'm doing. Either you pray or you cry. Then I jumped on LinkedIn during that time. So when I jumped on LinkedIn, I shared a picture of me while I was living in the forest. I was wearing a singlet and I wasn't looking that good. So I shared that post on LinkedIn and I said, sometimes we need to go through pain and struggles so that those things doesn't mean we should commit suicide. Sometimes we go through these struggles for us to find the beautiful things that God has placed inside of us that we are not paying attention to. So I had to have my first business idea in the forest, the errand boy, where nobody wants to be. That's where I had my first idea. So I was just a motivational quote I made. So this man from the US saw it. I was like, William, I think you have a beautiful story. Let me introduce you to this group if you want to share your story. I'm like, cool, I want to do it. So we had a Zoom meeting, me and about 30 businessmen and women from the US, all white people. And I told them my story. And they loved it. And I produced these kind of marks. I call it invisible marks. They are black marks. You don't see anything. I can put your image on it, but you don't see it unless I pour hot water in it. Then it triggers the image to come out. So I had one of the mark. So after I shared my story with these white people, I brought the mark out and I was like, hey, this is who we are. Human beings are black like this when we are not aware of our worth, when we are not aware of the beautiful things like God has placed inside of us. When people don't see the good in us, this is how we look like. But sometimes when we go through pain and struggles, that is the hot water. I started pouring the hot water in. When we go through pain and struggles, it goes in there to trigger the beautiful things we are not paying attention to. That is where we find our talents. So the image started popping up slowly, and they were like, wow, William, this is beautiful. I'm like, yes. So if you have one of these marks, every morning when you're having your hot coffee, your hot tea, it is going to remind you that there's something inside of you that needs to come out for the world to see. And guess what? Me living in that ghetto, I started shipping these marks from Ghana to the US. They started buying these marks from me. And I started making dollars whilst I was living in the ghetto thinking my life had come to an end. Right? So I became a member of the group. And it was just a community where they help themselves win, do businesses and all of that. So I became a member and they featured me on the Times Square billboard. They featured my company logo on the Times Square billboard for 24 hours because of my story. They just loved it. And I paid nothing, right? So one day I was also praying and I heard this voice that, William, these people, they love books. They're always talking about books. Have you read this book? And you have a story. Why don't you put your story in a book and sell to them? And when you write the book, title it No Human is Useless. And so that's how I got the name No Human is Useless. That's that little tiny voice, which I trust so much. So I published the book. I had no intention of becoming an author. So I published the book No Human is Useless. They started buying the book. And currently the book is 9 times international best-selling in US, UK, Canada, and Germany, right? So it became when I decided to start this whole thing as a movement because I look back and people are going through the same trend that I went through. that, hey, make sure you are first in class and your life is going to be beautiful. They complete school and then there's no job for them and they get into depression. So I decided to start this whole movement, go to schools, let them know that it is not all about becoming first in class. And because people are worse, but they are making it. So you learn the skill, and life is always going to throw challenges at you. Depression is always here to stay. So I started this movement, registered it. I go to schools, you know, churches, anywhere I find people there. I go there, I tell them my story, and I have pictures to everything I went through. So I show them, I display it, and tell them how I've been doing so far. Then I got an opportunity from the Caribbean Global Awards in the UK. They emailed me that, hey, William, we've been following you for 1 year. We see what you do. We are having amazing awards. Can you come over to the UK for? So I didn't even know how I was even going to get on a flight and fly to the UK. So I went there. I picked up the award. It was an amazing event. I picked up an award for my global efforts in helping people recover from depression, and it was amazing. I stayed some time in the UK, taking my books to libraries, promoting the book and all of that. And that's how the No Human is Useless, movement started. It was birthed out of my own journey of depression, going through pain, get to that point that I felt my whole life had come to an end and decided to turn that into purpose. And so far, that's what I've been doing. And it has been amazing. So that is how come the No Human is Useless, started. And we are still pushing.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What a story. Ah, yeah.
Mm.
So, William, so share with the listener who is listening to you today. When you were going through this period, what was happening to you internally? And what was that moment that things shifted? And what would you put in language of something you were becoming? And you use the word purpose. I just want somebody to hear that a little bit.
Mm. Thank you. So when I was going through that state of depression, that state of where I felt everybody has gone away from me, no, there's nobody to listen to me. It was like being dead, but being alive. I don't know how to put it, but you are dead inside. You are just a walking corpse, right? You just put out a smile. I went through functional depression. The functional depression is when on the outside, people will see you, you're okay, you're chatting with friends. But when you come back to your room alone in the dark, right, you feel like everything is up here. That's the end of your life. So that's what the feeling was like. It felt like you are dead, but people see you are okay. But when you are alone, you come back to your room. It was tough. It was tough. It was so tough, right? But the point where I felt there was a shift that this thing is actually today I even say God actually allowed me to go through all these things just for me to find this purpose and do what I'm doing today, you know. But the shift was when I flew to the UK to pick up the award for my global efforts in helping people recover from depression. Because these people who invited me had never commented on my post, they never liked my post, you know, but they had been following me for 1 year, one solid year. So for them to reach out to me after following me silently for 1 year, it means that what I was doing was really hitting people. People were actually watching what I was doing. And that is when I had a shift that no, this is something very important to embark on while I'm helping people. So that's how I felt, and that's when the shift came.
Yeah, I can definitely feel you there. No human is useless. It's such a bold and affirming statement, William. I mean, what does no human is useless look like in practice, in day-to-day life? And what does the movement serve? And which are some of the people that you serve through your storytelling
Mm.
of building dignity and healing?
Yeah, so for the movement, it serves every human being, because every human being goes through um, a state of depression. Sometimes they're not even aware. But what I'm doing is very tough. It is very tough, and it requires passion. It must come from within. Otherwise, because there are times I feel like giving up. I've given up so many times, because you do something and sometimes you need to take a step, but you don't have the resources. And you ask yourself, why am I even doing this? Nobody cares about it. And in my country, this thing I'm doing is very difficult to be accepted. It's not quite recent that people are getting to, embrace it in a way because many people are going through this kind of. Otherwise, nobody cares about you. It's all about, hey, go get a job, get money, and live your life. So that has been the challenge. I have gone through times where I feel like giving up. All right. And that's how it goes. My daily base, that's how it goes. But people on outside, they only see the beautiful things outside, like that we post for them to see. But internally, the day-to-day activity of this whole movement is not an easy task. And if it's not coming from within, no, forget about it. You just leave it somewhere. Yeah. But it's just passion. It's all about passion. I wake up doing this and I feel this thing brings me joy. All right. Just me hearing, sometimes people just see what something I post and it heals them. And that alone, brings me some joy within. So that's how the day-to-day activities of this whole movement has been like. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned one thing, and that's the challenges. And
Mhm.
you also mentioned it brings you joy. Why was it important for you that this work be human-centered, not just, outcomes and publicity?
So me reason being that for me, I think I'm being driven and moved by what I've been through and me seeing people going through the same things I went through, right? That is how I got to know that this should be a human centered because everybody goes through what I went through. And many of them don't have solutions to it. They are just living like that. Many of them don't have solutions to it. But to me, I've gone through it. I have a lived experience through this journey, and sometimes all you have to do, sometimes I just have to show my pictures to my before and after pictures to people, and it solves their problem. Sometimes I have to tell a story to them for them to relate to it or just to know that, oh, so what I'm even going through that is bothering me, this guy has also been through it. This guy has also been through it. And then that even calms them down. So seeing these challenges being rampant in our society, and how I use my story to tell to relate and they relating to what I have been through, makes me feel that no, this is something that solves these people's like I mean their problems and their challenges that they go through.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean,
Mm.
I can definitely imagine if it doesn't come from the heart, you can't be doing what you're doing,
No, no,
to
no,
be
no, no,
very
no. It's not
honest.
about this.
If it doesn't come from the heart. And you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned, challenges, homelessness, depression, failure. You mentioned what success looks like in the eyes of some people. I mean,
Mm.
from your experience, how do you think systems either, reinforce this narrative or dismantle these labels, especially from the systems that you have lived in and also worked with?
Can you repeat that again? I didn't hear
I
the last
mean,
part.
I'm just looking back at, the challenges you face, homelessness,
Mm-hmm.
depression, failure, and how success looks like in the eyes of some people, right? From your own lived experience, I mean, we have systems everywhere, systems in African nations, systems in Europe, systems in North America. How do these systems either reinforce this type of labels or dismantle them? And what will be your own advice, from your no human is useless perspective?
So I think the systems in I can talk about my country because I am here. Here doesn't really we are not up there yet. We are not up there yet. So when I started my story, I told you that people in the neighborhood will tell you that when you're first in class and you get good grades, automatically your life is going to be beautiful because you're going to land a job. And I completed and then it wasn't like that. All right. And that's the kind of system we all live in here. It has its own twists and turns. Sometimes you need to, it is not all about the education. Sometimes you need to acquire some skills. And all these things, I'm able to maneuver it because I have also had some jobs which I learned certain petty skills in the communication, so many stuff I learned from working from other people. And that really helped me in putting that in the movement I'm doing right now, right? But the system here in Ghana, it's very hard. It's very tough, all right? And if you don't have any backup plan, if there's no backup plan for you, you'll be lost. You'll be lost in the system. All right. But one thing I believe in, if you are moved by passion, right? If you are moved by passion, with or without money, there's a drive that still push you to do what you're doing. If you are moved by passion, with or without money, there's something that push you to do to keep you doing what you do. And consistency always brings the results. When you do something, you keep doing it, there's always going to be an outcome. Like for example, if you're a thief, you keep on stealing, one day you'll be caught. And if you do something good and you keep on doing, there's no way you do something consistently and then there will be no outcome. All right. And what will drive you to do the consistency? What drives you to bring the consistency is the passion. Is the thing that moves you even when you have money or you don't have money. Because many people rely on money to do things. And trust me, I have done so many big, huge stuff without money. Like I hosted an event, a conference that had people flying in from Switzerland, from UK, all the way to Ghana, and I didn't have my money in it. But somebody wouldn't have done it because of lack of money. I had a dream, I had a plan, but I had no money. But I made it happen because there was this passion that drove me towards this thing that I want to do. So if it is going to, you are going to base on a system, especially in Ghana, you will never do whatever thing you want to do because the system is not going to give you that money. It's not going to give you that push. It doesn't care about you. All right. So if you are driven by passion, that is what is going to move you to attain that success that you dream of. So for the system, speaking based on my country, it is not going to support you to get that dream that you want to dream. It's very hard. It's very hard unless you have some close ties with some affluent people. Otherwise, if you're a normal person like me, forget about it. You need to be driven by passion.
I mean, you mentioned some really amazing words there. You mentioned systems and how systems could fail, but you mentioned
Yeah.
consistency. You
Yeah.
mentioned passion. And you mentioned a couple of things earlier, which ties to this word that I really love, which is resilience. And you've been very open, William, about the hardest chapters of your life,
Mm.
and which has shown resilience. I mean, resilience is a word I relate to because I've written some books on resilience, and I really love resilience because it helps ground us. It helps build the passion that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, in your own story, I mean, tell me something that didn't work the way you hoped. What did
Oh,
that
well,
teach you, especially navigating setbacks, carrying hope while holding pain and staying grounded?
a whole lot of things had never worked for me. A whole lot. But there's one thing that never worked for me, but led me to a breakthrough, and I want to share that with you. Now, in January 2025, right, I was busily looking for international speaking gigs. I wanted to get on international stages to share my story. And I knew people who could have just snapped their fingers and then make it happen for me. But all of them said, no, William, not this time. William, I can't help you. William, I'm too busy. William, name it. All the forms of rejection were thrown at me. And it made me feel so bad, so down. Like I felt like, why are these people betraying me? You know? But little did I know that God wanted me to use that opportunity for me to start my own thing, right? So I was praying one day. I heard the same voice telling me that, William, these people are saying no to you. You have a story, so why don't you have your own event so that you get to stand on stage and speak as long as you want? Because you trying to travel to get a speaking gig means you want to stand on stage and tell your story. But if you own it, it's your own stage. You can speak as long as you want. And that's when I had the idea to start my annual conference, the No Human Issues annual conference. And if these people had said yes to me, there will be no annual conference for me. But when they said no to me, it made me feel so bad. I had the mindset to start my own event. And trust me, I set up a flyer, started talking about it, did a crowdfunding platform. People were putting in $100, $10, just few monies. One day I woke up, I saw $1,000 from a stranger, somebody from Saudi Arabia, putting $1,000 in my account. That, hey, William, I need to support this. No human is useless is a very important message. So take this. If you need any help, come to me. I raised a lot of money. I booked a 2,000 seater capacity auditorium. I got people flying in from 4 people flying from Switzerland, from UK. I had speakers from the US coming down to Ghana. And then we had this amazing conference, which healed a lot of people. Because at that point, my conference was also made in a way that people get to share their real life stories, things that they can't talk about because of the stigma. On the day of the conference, people were able to share the things that have been eating them up that they've never told anybody. And it was a safe space for everybody. And it was an amazing event. So that thing didn't work for me, but it turned out to be something great for me, positive. And I'm hoping to do the next one in Ghana and probably in Kenya or South Africa this year, which I'm working hard on it. So that's how but apart from that, so many things didn't work for me. Sometimes you go to people for support, they will tell you no. But for me, because it's a passion, I keep moving on. If you reject me, I move on to the next person. I end up meeting somebody who is way bigger than the previous one. So a lot of things don't work for me, but I still find my way through it because I am driven by passion. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's so inspiring. And when you look at the world today, William, what gives you hope?
One day I almost gave up, right? I almost gave up on what I do. Then this lady from TikTok reached out to me and said, Mr. William, I gave up in the sense that I packed all my documents to just keep in a bag and said, hey, I'm just tired with this no human issues, this stuff. Then I get this message from this lady from TikTok saying, Mr. Plange, I attempted suicide 8 times and I was on the verge on attempting the ninth one and I chanced on your video. But I have a video of me on TikTok that has pictures of how I went to live in the forest and all the things that came up. So she chanced on that video and she said, William, when I saw that video, I realized that I'm not useless. And I decided not to take my life. And that day when I heard that, I just went into my documents, picked up all the stuff and said, no. I healed a soul just because of a video, just because of my story. I am not a doctor, but I'm able to help somebody overturn the thought of committing suicide. And that thing gave me so much hope. And that's just one of the what's it called? Um, Feedback I've had from people. I get a lot of it. So just me using my story alone to give people hope alone gives me hope and keeps me doing what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, William, storytelling. I can imagine how much your story is healing societies.
Mm.
But I want you to talk to one person right now who might be listening to a call. What would you say to someone that feels invisible, about to even give up?
What I'll say is just look at me. Look at because I went to the most horrible place in my life. But hey, you see, I have grown to believe that the most beautiful things, the success, the blessings of God, all the good things we desire in life, they are mostly found in uncomfortable situations. They are found in pain. They are found in struggles. That is the best things in life. That is where they are found. So if you're watching me and then you feel like you're going through stuff, you feel like you've gone through the hardest parts of your life, I just want to tell you that God has hidden your blessings somewhere where you feel your life is supposed to come to an end. That is where it is. Many people have committed suicide and left their blessings behind. They didn't know about it. But I believe that God hides our blessings in uncomfortable situations. So just give yourself just one more day, you know, to try it again. Giving yourself one more day means that if it didn't work today, okay, let me try it tomorrow. If tomorrow never works, just give it one more day. And then that one more day will be your breakthrough. So that's my advice for them. Your blessing is really hidden there.
That's such amazing, amazing
Mhm.
word. William, is there any other thing you wanted to share? I mean, which was not asked of you today? I mean, I believe there's
Mm,
someone listening that really just want to hear something. Is there any other thing which you feel you should share? This is an opportunity before we wrap up a few things here.
okay, so the No Human is Useless organization had another initiative this year where we are going to visit inmates in the prisons because most of the time those people are left out. But I have grown to believe that a prison is not that confined walls that they find themselves in. It's a state of mind. Because many of us who are living on the outside freely, we think we are free. Many of us are living in prisons because of our mindset, right? So we are going to the prisons, and we are starting this Saturday. I'll be going to the prisons to have a conversation with them, let them know that where they find themselves doesn't mean that's the end of their life. Use my story, my pictures, show them that I've also lived in prison. Not like this, but me going through a lot in my mind, compelling me to move away to go live in the forest, walking 4 or 5 hours to carry food stuff. That was a prison for me, but that is where I found clarity. That's where I found my purpose in the forest. So I just want to encourage these inmates that, regardless of where they may find themselves right now, there's hope there. They can turn things around there. And then we'll give them some gifts and all of that. And now we also have our merchandises on our website, t-shirts, caps, anything. And when you get these things, it's only there for you. It's not for fashion, but it's anytime you pick it up, you wear it, it's going to remind you that you are never useless. When somebody see you wear it, it's going to remind them that, hey, I'm not useless. So if you buy this mesh, you are supporting us do the good work we are doing. Because raising funds is very tough. We don't have any backends giving us grants and all of those stuff. We are doing it with our hard-earned money and pushing all these things around. So we are starting the prison initiative, and I would love to encourage people to get on our website, just buy something small so that we can use the proceeds to support these kind of people who are feeling left behind.
That's amazing work.
Mm,
Amazing work
mm,
right from the
mm.
heart, William.
Thank you.
Amazing work. So we have a tradition at Voices of Impact. Before we wrap up, we have a word die, like you can see here. There's a word die. It has a couple of words on it. And
Mhm.
I'll ask you, first of all, to choose two words. And I will read each of the words on our word die. So it's make a difference, rebuild, overcome, stronger, peace, and patience. So choose two words first, and then one should reflect your journey, which I asked you to speak to. The other
Mhm.
should be a word for somebody listening to you today.
Okay. So the one for me is overcome. Then the one for anybody listening to me is make a difference. Yeah.
So why those two words, William?
So those two words, because I just want to remind everybody that whatever thing you're going through, make sure you overcome it. And when you overcome it, make sure you use it as impact to make a difference in people's life. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how do these words show up for you in life today?
Oh, that is my these two words are the center of everything I do right now. I had to go through pain, overcome it, and now I'm turning that into purpose to, you know, help people in their lives. These two words are what I stand. That is my how do you call it? My foundation to whatever thing I'm doing right now as William Plange, as No Human is Useless, to overcome it and use it to make difference in people's life.
Amazing. So now, William, how can people reach you? Can you share your contact, your website, just so that if somebody listening to this call wants to reach No
Yeah.
Human is Useless, wants to reach through to William Plange, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so I'm very vibrant on LinkedIn. LinkedIn as William Plange, right? And my website, www.nohumanisyuseless.com. No human is useless, just one word, .com. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, but I'm very vibrant on LinkedIn. Yes. And on my website, you can send me emails everywhere. My email is info@nohumanisyuseless.com. LinkedIn William Plange. Yes, and that's it.
William, we thank you for your honesty, your
Mm,
courage, leadership, and
mm,
your voice.
mm.
And today's conversation reminds us that impact isn't, always just about, you know, an office. It's about changing the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also restoring what the world has tried to take away from us.
Mm-hmm. That's very
And to
true.
someone listening to us, from what William has said, your story matters. Your presence matters.
Mm.
Your voice has power. Even when it's quiet, you can always give it a second chance. We appreciate William for his leadership. We appreciate No Human is Useless for taking the time to sit with us today at Voices of Impact. We're Ndoping and Co. performance consultants. We design strategy. We support entrepreneurs and nonprofits in establishing a sustainable ecosystem for measurable output. We coach, we clarify, we redefine, we support organizational and entrepreneurial strategy to build capacity for alignment of a system that gives you back time, establishes a culture where you can withstand change, and provides you the strength when business turbulence is coming. Our website is www.ndopingco, that's ndopingco.com. And our business email is coaching@ndopingco.com. We also have a Facebook page, which is Ndoping Coaching. Instagram is Ndoping_co. I am your host, Robert Ndoping. This has been the Voice of Impact. We've had William today share his life from his heart. Keep listening, keep becoming, and keep using your voice. Thank you so much, William.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And it's very simple. Empower as many people as possible. Empower as many leaders as possible. Touch as many, professionals as I can. Be able to make a difference.